Hello, YouTubers. Joe Kersey here on October 3rd, Friday, 2014 at 1:45 in the afternoon, p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Now, consider this like part two here of an October autobiography. Now, when we when we last left our hero, he was He was newly ensconced in his single room there at Ohio State there, starting second quarter, which would be winter quarter at Ohio State in 1970, because, that would be from like January to March, mid-March, late March. And it was very nice. You had there, I had a single room, that was one remove up from the corner of what would be the southernmost part of the dorm. And you had two fairly good sized, actually you had two rooms the exact same size of the one that I was in that had three guys. But, on either side of the hall, and each one of those rooms had two guys in them. And then there was a fellow across the hall in a single room, a matching single room. And then the rest of the rooms down the hall were all double rooms. Well, except for the RA for the unit, who had what would otherwise be a double room, but he had it to himself. And I think, actually, no, I take that back. There were actually two single rooms farther down the hall. All right. That's neither here nor there. Actually, East Baker Hall had a number of single rooms, probably the largest density of single rooms on campus, other than there was a dedicated graduate tower on North Campus that had, all those rooms for the graduate students were single rooms. But unlike my previous, unit that I'd been in, I got along famously with pretty much everybody up there. To the point that, I generally, when I was there, leave my door open, and except when I was really doing serious work, and people would come and go and sit down and chat a bit and then move on. It was very nice. It was very pleasant. And I became relatively good friends with the two guys that lived immediately next door to me. Excuse me. To the point that between quarters, a lot of times I'd run up and have, we'd go out and have dinner, and, I actually met the one guy's family on a number of occasions, mom and dad, and then the other guy I met, his dad took the three of us out to dinner one night. So you go over and you jack. It was great. Anyway, so it was a much better situation for me. But then I got thinking about how the internet and text messaging and smartphones and everything has really sort of changed how people interact with each other, in terms of, certainly people of like 19, 20, college age, university age, interact with each other. And older now, too, I suppose. First of all, when I was in school, to talk to my folks at home, my parents, I could either make a very, very expensive long-distance phone call, and that was a no-no, except under the most stringent of circumstances. Because he had to be, had to be collect, or I had to go out to a payphone and put money in the phone. So that phone call just wasn't on, except very infrequently. So I was, left you to, you wrote a letter, and sit down at the little electric typewriter and type this letter out. Which actually, the letter format is not a bad way to communicate with one's parents when one wants to, how shall we say, be somewhat selective in what they say and not unintentionally let something slip out while the mouth is running on. I think if you've watched me enough, you know what I mean. And so, you'd type a letter, and then you'd get a letter back. My dad only wrote me one letter ever when I was in school. But my mother would write back. As she wrote me fairly frequently. Even after, she wrote me fairly frequently up until she became, until she fell and had her, kind of brained herself. I mean, she'd write me people. I would call her, I'd go down there every 2 weeks or 10 days anyway. So, but that's irrelevant to discussion. So, you'd get a letter or a postcard, you'd get a letter back. You'd type a letter back. It's back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I think the cost of a letter that first year was like a nickel. It was like 5 cents to send a first class letter. Now it's 49. And what you did not have in that context was the immediacy of either email, or even more immediate, I guess, with these smartphones, is the texting things, the little texting stuff. For us, the equivalent of that sort of internet communication today, the equivalent then was you just walk down the hall and talk to a guy. You go next door and talk to a guy. You walk down the hall and talk to a guy. I mean, that's and of course that meant your range was somewhat limited unless you wanted to go walk across campus and talk to a guy. And I had a very good friend lived up on North Campus, and I'd go over there from time to time, and we'd sit there and yak a bit. And so that was the equivalent of our internet. Now we didn't write each other letters, in the dorm, but it was like walking up and down the hall and talking to each other was the equivalent of our internet. It was fun. It was great. As I said, I'd leave my door open and people would come in. We'd shoot the shit periodically. Unless I was actually right in something crucial that I had to concentrate on or produce. And I'd do the same with them. I'd wander over, sit down, shoot the breeze. Occasionally they'd crank up some music and that sort of thing. Yeah, it was great fun. That was our internet. Our internet was actually being in each other's presence. So, it was good. I greatly enjoyed living in that setup. Actually, the one fella next door, they both joined a fraternity, but they didn't live in the house. The one fellow spent one of the guys spent a great deal of time over at this fraternity house, just on a social basis there, I guess, what would be my junior year, my third year. The other guy, he'd go over there sort of to do the pro forma stuff, but he wasn't. He turns out he wasn't quite into that. He actually the one guy was on the lacrosse team. The one that actually didn't want to go over there and horse with these guys that much. The other fellow who did go over there, he turns out he's on the, now professor at Ohio State. Well, it's interesting how these things work out. The guy that was on the lacrosse team, he's an architect up in the Northeast Ohio area right now, currently. That's what he'd wanted to go into. He wanted to go into architecture. I think the fellow that's on faculty, he went to Harvard to do a degree in landscape architecture. Now, I can't ever imagine anybody going to Harvard to do a degree in landscape architecture, but that's what he did. And then the architect fellow, I don't know if he went to Yale. I don't know. Anyway, he's an architect. Anyway, I like these guys very, very much. And I was, a guest in, certainly the fellow ended up in landscape architecture. I was a guest in their house a couple times. Anyway, that was our internet. You go back and forth and sit down and shoot the breeze. None of this texting. Well, and the internet, as far as this friend of mine that went down to Miami University, was just, letters back and forth. I mean, I've got all the letters that I ever received from him, and I have all the letters I wrote my mother or my folks, because she saved them all. When she was having a good clear out, she gave me a big box of these things. And let's just say that the ones that I got from my friend in return and the ones I wrote him were very, very honest. And let's say the ones I got back from my mother were very saccharine, and the ones I sent them were, how shall we say, highly elided, E-L-I-D-E-D, highly elided as far as some things that might be going on. But there wasn't, come on, guys. There wasn't, I wasn't doing, it's not like, the most I was doing, I was going out and drinking a few nights a week. But I couldn't do that too much because I didn't have money to do it. In a subsequent video, I'm going to show you my little accounts book from my first year. Well, heck, not necessarily a subsequent video. Let's just carry on. I've got, this is a book, it's called Assignments and Dates to Remember 1969-1970. And it's like my day book from the university. And, it's like where I kept all, like my assignments and what I had to do and where I had to be and that sort of thing. And, like when history papers were due and that sort of thing. And, examination week and last day of class and what to do. And so I kept a, there was a little expense area in the back, and I kept a record of things. And just to give you an example, academic fees in 1969 for a quarter were $278 a quarter. And then the housing for a quarter was $3. That's room and board. I mean, that's 20 meals. That's 20 meals a week. You had to go out on Sunday to get your Sunday dinner, but that's 20 meals a week. That was $353. Now those are $1963 or $1969. So multiply those by about 4.5 now. So you're looking at maybe $1,200, $1,300 academic fees, and then housing would be $1,600, $1,700. So you're looking at about $3,000 a quarter, which would be $9,000 a quarter total. I don't know what the going rate is now for a quarter at Ohio State. Well, you'd have to prorate it for the semester. I don't know what that is now. I think it's, let's see, actually, if you multiply that by 3, that's 27 times. I talked to a guy a while back, and he's on a full ride, housing and scholarship, and he said it's the equivalent of like $42,000. So 27,000 to 42,000. I can't imagine paying $42,000 to go to Ohio State University. It's a good school, and I had a great time. But come on, $42,000 a year. In any case, that's the way it is. I'm being beset. Anyway, so I kept my little thing here. This entry here toward the bottom is, things that I had to buy when I first got up there. Things like light bulbs, postage. Yeah, I went to a movie. Books. Bought a sweatshirt. Bought a bulletin board, hang on my wall. And then you get the income, from when the scholarship checks came in and so forth. And I guess I'd done a little work. I went home and I worked for the lawyers, and they paid me it was like $41.81, and then another check for $26.80. So I made I guess $67, $68 when I went home for Christmas. And, I need a new watch band, and that was like $3.07. And I sold one of my basketball tickets for $2.50. So I got that. That came in. I bought a pair of gym shorts for $1.61. So that was, I guess I did a little typing for a guy, and he paid me $5. Well, you do what you can. Now, we had, I mentioned about letters being 5 cents. Well, later on in that year, they raised them to 6 cents. And so I have here a collection of, there's some 6-cent stamps. And then there's another set of 6-cent stamps with Eisenhower on them. And then I guess later on, even later, they sort of raised it. They went up to 8 cents. And so that was, I saved some of those. Are kind of neat stamps, I thought. But on May 7th, 1970, that's when the university shut down because of all this Kent State. It wasn't so much Kent State as Vietnam War nonsense. And so you have here midterm week, and then History 122 midterm down there on May 6th, which I guess we actually had that one. Then May 7th here, it's crossed out. It's crossed out the subsequent 2 weeks. The stuff that you see written in there was stuff that was going to be happening in classes. And then we went back to class on May 19th. Tuesday, May 19th, classes restart. So, what my intention was to show you when I dredged this thing out from my shelves here was I wanted to show you an entry that I had for I bought a stamp for 5 cents. Actually, it turns out that's in another book that I'm not going to bother to show you. That I kept my sophomore year when postcards were still like 5 cents. I bought a postcard or a stamp for a postcard. So it was, watched my stuff. There's a number of things in there that says dinner, $1.25, dinner, $1.25. And that was the Sunday, because see, Sunday evening we had to go find our own food. I mean, that wasn't included in the meal plan. And I went up to the Thirsty Eye, which was, they offered an all-you-could-eat pizza buffet for $1.25. And you could also get then a pitcher of Black Label for $1. Interestingly, the pitchers of Black Label don't enter into this. So I guess that first year, my freshman year, I was being a good boy and not drinking all that much. Well, I was underage. I mean, I just, sometimes you'd risk it, sometimes you wouldn't. Anyways, but I'd go up there and I'd have the all-you-could-eat $1.25 pizza buffet at the Thirsty Eye. So that was that. I'll tell you, I enjoyed my 3 undergraduate years at Ohio State, except for that, sort of abortive start. At least in terms of living arrangements. I enjoyed the academic stuff all the time in that first quarter. But that's that. So bye-bye, YouTubers.